What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. So today we have the second installment of Heavy Talk. Yes, we finally have a name for this series, so I appreciate you guys leaving those comments down in the last video. Today we are interviewing Charlie Gold, who is by far the most requested person to be on the series. It's a really good conversation. I think there's so many good things for you guys to learn from this. I want to make sure if you guys want to check out Charlie, I will link all of her stuff down in the description, her Instagram, her YouTube. I really think you guys can get a lot out of her content, and I really think that you guys will get a lot out of this interview. So without further ado, roll the intro. Charlie, thank you so much for being on the show, Heavy Talk. We finally have a name and we have an intro, so it's all official now. So you were by far the most requested person to be on the channel for an interview. I think the reason being is because you're really talking a lot about the realities of, you know, morbid obesity, the realities of like what that's like. And I think that it's coming at such a perfect time because, as you know, like with my channel, Every Damn Day Fitness, Michelle, Swolenormous, you now, we're talking a lot about the health at every size movement, which is gaining a lot of traction. And I mean, I think there's good parts of that, there's bad parts of that, but I think the thing that has not been talked about enough is the actual realities, right, of morbid obesity. So that video that you released, The Dark Side of Obesity, it really just, like, it made me, I made that reaction video to it because I think that that's something that a lot of people are missing, you know. So I'm really excited to get this conversation started. So again, thank you so much for being on. Me. So I wanted to kind of talk about how you got up to your heaviest weight, because at your heaviest you were over 400 pounds, correct?
Yes, I was 402 to be exact.
402, and you're, how tall are you?
5'4".
5'4". Wow. Yeah, that's no joke. So I'm just curious, how did you get to that point, right? Were you someone that was overweight your whole life? Had you been, you know, like, how did you get to 402 pounds?
Well, I've been slightly overweight most of my life, but nothing that I would say is alarming. I'd say for most of it, I was probably 20 pounds to 40 pounds overweight, but my weight always sat well on me. I guess that's the best way to put it, until it got to the point where I was really getting in a dangerous place with binging. And that's truly how I got to the 400. Was with binging, not dealing with my past well emotionally, and then I turned to food. I used to be on the opposite end, actually, where I wasn't eating, and when that wasn't working, that control wasn't working, I just went to the complete opposite side and gained the 200 pounds in about a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
200 pounds in a year and a half. Well, that's crazy, because Mike, that was on the last one, he gained 270 in 6 months. And like, for me, when I hear that, it's so crazy because I was the kid that was overweight my whole life, right? Like, I just kind of slowly gained weight over time. So for me, mentally, if someone asked like, what was it like? For me, it was every year, it was just normal for me to buy a bigger shirt size, buy a bigger, you know, it was just became very normal for me. So what was going through your head when you started to realize, you know, you gained that amount of weight in such a short amount of time?
When it first started to happen, I was so stuck on my job, because my career at the job at the time was the most I've ever made. So I was more so worried about continuing to make the money that I was making. So when I noticed I was starting to gain weight, I completely ignored it. What I did is I just bought better sneakers, bought better shoes, bought more clothes that stretched to buy me more time. That's what I kept doing until I got to the point one day where my body just shut down. I didn't need more clothes at the time. I didn't need, you know, better sneakers anymore. I now needed to really save my life, because now I couldn't walk, I couldn't stand.
So when you say that your body was like shutting down on you, I'm just really curious, like what did that look like when you say your body was shutting down on you? What exactly was kind of like going on?
It started with my legs first. My legs, ankles, and feet, by the end of the day, it would like swell really, really bad, and I'd be in pain. By the end of my work day, I didn't have like the energy or really the mobility to do things around the house. That's how much pain I was in. I would go home, crawl in bed or crawl on a couch and order food. Every single meal during that time frame, was bought. Starbucks in the morning knew my order. My lunch normally came from the same Chinese food place. They knew my order. And dinner was where I guess I went to different places. But that's also something I want people to know. If places start to know your order just by your phone number, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened with me personally. And I'd be in so much pain from my knees, my ankles, my feet, that that's where it started. My back, it started later on, but it really started with my legs, which is why I started to buy, better shoes, more expensive shoes. I remember the most expensive I bought was like $200 because I'm like, this better work, this can buy me more time. But if I really wanted more time, I should have took the time out to really address my health. And then one day
Mm-hmm.
my body was just like, you know what, you're not listening, and it just shut down.
I remember when I worked at the Van shoe store. That was my first job, right? And that was when I was at my heaviest. I remember, so I would only work 4 hour shifts, right? And when you work at Vans, you have to wear Vans, and so they're not really made for working around. Like they're not walking shoes, right? They're skateboard shoes,
Mm-hmm.
and my feet would be so much pain, and I would kind of in my head I would rationalize it because my other coworkers would kind of complain about how their feet hurt, but I would literally I would have to take my 10-minute break and sit down the whole time. And a lot of my other coworkers would just, if they didn't get their break, it was no big deal. I mean, you're supposed to get your breaks, but they weren't like freaking out. In my head, that's literally all I would think about when I was at work was when is the next time I can sit down. And it just became so normal to me that I felt like that's how everyone must have felt. But now, like I can stand up all day, I can go on runs, I can walk. It's not an issue for me anymore, but it became that reality for me, and it was such a big deal that it literally would consume my mind when I was at work. I'm curious. So when I was at my heaviest, I remember I would get scabs on my feet. And like a lot of that's from circulation. You're not having really great circulation because again I was 360 pounds, and I remember I would almost rationalize that again as I just sweat a lot, and it's probably just from that. Did you have anything that you noticed that you would kind of rationalize away and just explain away, and then you would act like everything's fine?
Yeah, I would get dark circles around my ankle, and technically I still have my dark circle around my neck. It's just starting to lighten up over time. And the one from my ankles, I think it did have to do with my socks, but like I bought big socks. It's the best that I can do, but after
Mm-hmm.
some time, and also on my calves, like the socks I wore went up to my calves, and they were big socks, and those were still tight. So I knew what it was, but I was still at a time and a place where I was lying to myself. That was the biggest problem. I would find different ways to lie to myself over and over and over, like, oh, it's just because it's cold outside. Because I'm originally from Connecticut, and our winters can be brutal. So at one point, I was blaming the swelling on the cold, not the fact that I was eating thousands and thousands of calories every day, not
Mm-hmm.
because I was really, really obese. I would make excuses, but then sometimes at night, I would have conversations with myself where it's like, you know what the problem is. But at the same time, for me, it was like, can you afford to address the problem right now? You can't. You have to go after this money. You have to keep, building what you're doing. And it ended up costing me almost everything in the end.
Yeah, it's scary how your health can really run away from you like that fast. And it might not seem like, a year and a half. That's not that you have enough time to think about stuff. But like when you are, especially like in like some sort of 9 to 5 where it's like very routine, you don't realize, like, I truly believe habits are the backbone of almost everything we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the habits had become so bad, like you said, you had those places that knew your order when you'd call in. Your habits had become so bad that you didn't even realize it anymore, right? Like a lot of people that are morbidly obese, they don't even think, I was in this camp, you don't even think about how many calories are in all the soda that you're consuming, right? Because I would drink over a 2 liter a day, and it wasn't that I wouldn't even think about it. It was just, this is my drink. This is what I drink. I didn't think, this is, 1,500, 2,000 calories just in soda every single day, right? But then what's amazing, and this is what is so cool about when you are trying to lose a massive amount of weight, you realize you realize how bad those habits were because you change one and you see this huge change, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've lost 30 pounds, or I feel so much better, and all I did was stop drinking soda. Like that's what I always tell people. Like, if you have 20 pounds to lose, that's going to be hard from the start because you're not super large, right? But like, if you have 200, 300 pounds to lose, I'm telling you, you make one change, and it could be so simple, because let's be real, right? Unless you have some sort of medical condition, if you got that big, you have some very, very bad habits that you've just fallen into and have become very normal for you, right? You take a step back, analyze your life. What am I doing that is getting me to this size? Pick one thing, right? Pick one thing and make a change there. You'll see a huge result. And for me, it was always soda, right? Like, I always was. Soda is the thing. No matter how large you are, how much knowledge you have of healthy food and unhealthy food, everyone's like, soda's probably not the best thing to be drinking all the time, right? So it was always like, that was the thing for me. It was like, okay, I should stop drinking soda, and that's what I did this time. And it was like, that was one of the starting things that I did. So it is really cool when you do have a massive amount of weight to lose. Like, obviously, it's a huge hurdle because you have a massive amount of weight. But you get that jump start by anything you do is going to show some sort of result, which is nice. I am curious about I like to call it your click moment, or like that rock bottom moment for you when you say your body had shut down on you. What kind of happened? What was the catalyst to be like, I'm gonna make some changes. This is the time that I need to start losing weight?
Well, I guess you can say I had two. So when I hit the 400, I ended up being housebound because I really couldn't do much. So it was just me and my cat most of the time. And which is what happened with the video that I posted. I ended up being in a dark place. And when I kind of got to the point where I decided to fight, I wasn't sure if it would like really stick or if I'd be able to actually come out of it. But the more and more I tried, I was coming out of it. I was fighting a bit more. And then my family and I made the decision for me to leave. So I ended up moving down here to Florida to live with my sister for a little bit. And while I was down here, at first I had lost 50 pounds. Within 2 to 3 months, I lost 50 pounds. But during that time, I wasn't working. But then it came to the time I had to go back to work. I went back to work, and within 2 months, I gained the 50 pounds back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gained it back. And it stuck for a few months until last October. I'll never forget. I went to, it was like a horror night called Screamageddon down here. And I was in so much pain. It took everything in me not to cry after each like horror house. And my friends kept having to stop with me, and you can tell they didn't need to stop, but I had to stop because that's how much pain I was in. That's how much pain my legs, my everything. And I realized in that moment, the last time I felt that type of pain and I ignored it was right before my body shut down on me. And even though I wasn't at shutdown mode in that moment, I realized how close it was and how much I had worked to get from that. And I ate my way right back to that. And then I said, I'm done. In that moment, I said, I'm done. I still have problems with binging, but it's nowhere near that because it scared me. Because to know that I can be housebound again twice in one lifetime, I knew if I allowed myself to get back to that place, I don't know if I would be able to crawl back out again. So in that moment, I made that decision. And I believe it was the next day, if not that same night, I went grocery shopping and I started to change everything. Everything.
It's funny that you say that, because I think that fear, not the fear from the horror night thing, but like actual fear of becoming housebound again, I think fear is an incredible motivator. And it might sound kind of negative, but if you truly fear something, like for me, I've told my story before, but I was very fearful that I was going to die because of my size. Like, there was no, I mean, I knew that I was going to die because of my size. It was just, when is it going to happen, right? Like, I was fully prepared to become housebound. Like, as crazy as that sounds, I would see this. I think this was before my 600-pound life was on TV, but I would see like the stories about the people having to get airlifted out of their house to go to the hospital because they're so big. And I was in my head, I would be like, yeah, that's probably gonna be me one day. And I just kind of had accepted that, right? And so for me, my click moment there's a lot of things that kind of happened, but it really goes down to I was very fearful and I had a kind of a health scare, and from that moment on I was like I don't want to die, you know? And so I think fear can be an incredible motivator to
Yeah.
not to just make change, but to keep that change going. Because when you do maybe want to slip back, or when you do maybe want to make the wrong decisions again, that is always in the back of your head. You're like, is this worth my life? You know?
Yeah.
And I don't think that it is. So okay, I wanted to talk about this because I think that, I mean, obviously it's a big part of your channel, and I think that the stuff that you're doing is really valuable, but some people might not see it that way if they don't understand where you're coming from. And that's the reactions that you do to Amberlyn Reed.
Yeah.
I think that one, the titles that you use are genius, and your thumbnails are genius. You do a really good job of, if someone just sees the title, they might be like, oh, that girl's mean, but it's like you need to click on the video
Yeah.
and understand. So what made you want to start reacting? Because I'm assuming most people that are watching know who this is, so we don't have to explain that whole story. But
Yeah.
what made you want to start reacting to those videos and put your voice out there, right?
Well, the first time I wasn't ever planning to react to her. I was planning to mostly do commentary, and it's because I started watching her over a year. I can safely say probably a year and a half now, but then I stopped watching her from all the negativity. It just something didn't make sense, because what I thought is she was getting hate because of her size. That's really what I thought. And,
I was same.
yeah, so then I'm like, oh my gosh. At the time, I still wanted to come back on YouTube to share my story. And I'm like, if this girl's getting that much hate, I'm going to get the same. So I kind of stepped back. And then one day, YouTube recommended a different type of video showing a different perspective. And that's when I realized, oh, this is really what the problem is. But then at the same time, there were things I would watch other reaction channels, and there were things they were kind of missing, which wasn't any fault of their own. It's just they didn't have the background. They, didn't gain a massive amount of weight, or they weren't a woman at the same time, or they just didn't have the past that Amberlyn and I had. Amberlyn and I actually have kind of parallel paths. We both were in foster care. We both gained a lot of weight. We both have struggling relationships with our parents and family. And there's times I watch her, and this is the part that I don't say on my channel much, because, like, I don't know, it probably sounds crazy, but a lot of the times when I'm actually reacting to Amberlyn, I'm actually talking to myself.
Oh, I see that 100%. I see that.
Yeah.
I can see that the passion it's not just like, oh, obviously I think you do actually care about her and you don't want her to die, but I think a lot of the passion is coming from, you're talking to yourself, like you said, 100%.
Yeah. There's only been one commenter that, like a supporter that commented that, and it was like this long paragraph. And I started crying, because I'm like, I think she's probably the only one who sees that I'm actually just talking to myself, because I was Amberlyn. There's so many things about her, even some of her mistakes that I've made. And what bothers me is I don't think she realized how bad it can get. Or maybe she does realize, but it's more important for her to chase the money, just like I chase the money. And what she doesn't realize is, when your body shuts down, all those things you're buying, it doesn't matter. I used to be a big sneakerhead. I used to like bags, heels, all that stuff. When I was in my house, I was in my house with all types of Jordans, all types of heels, all types of expensive purses. None of that did anything for my health. I just sat down and looked at all the things that I bought that I couldn't even use anymore, because I was now housebound. None of it mattered. And I don't think that's where some of the frustration is, but it comes down to, that's who I'm talking to. And when I first started, I didn't expect to go this long, but if I'm being completely honest, one of the biggest reasons I continue to react to her is because this is the one of many ways I can stay accountable. Do you know how crazy I would look if I sat on YouTube giving my commentary on this girl and then turn around and gain 100 pounds? I would
Yeah.
be crazy. So part of me, a part of why I do it still is for that reason, because I think the message is out there, and it is helping a lot of people based on the messages I'm getting. Some people do come there for entertainment, but some people actually come there for that tough love. And that's who I am. And I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not. And at one point, I wish I had that person talking to me that way. But just like Amber Lynn, when I was at my worst, I was very much in control of my life and the people around me.
Mm.
I brought in most of the money out of my friends and family. So you're not going to talk to me a certain way. I'm going to stay in control. And I see it in her. But the thing is, I wish I had that person talking to me in this way that wasn't scared to talk to me in this way. She's surrounded
Mm-hmm.
around people where she's very much in control. Where for
Mm-hmm.
me, I don't care how much more money you bring. I don't care about your money. Life is like money's not going to save you. If Steve Jobs could die, she can die.
Oh yeah. It's 100. I without a doubt, I agree. I think that it's a very dangerous situation when you're surrounded by yes men, right? When people they just want to please you, they just want to make you happy, and I mean that's kind of how anybody gets to be really, really big. You know, the 600, 700 pound people. It's you literally no longer are able to get up and get the food yourself. So you need that person that is going to be that yes man. And I mean that's a whole situation that I don't really understand 100%. So I'm not going to sit here and say like it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. It's just a bad situation, right?
Yeah.
And I think that anybody can kind of agree with that. I think that her channel, while I mean, I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen a video in a pretty long time, but I think that it is a good thing to be out there for the people that are like really into the health at every size. I think that if you want to be a part of that group, like go watch her videos and then really rethink your situation. Because again, with health at every size for me, I think that for the vast majority of people, it's probably a good thing. You can't really tell someone's health by looking at them unless you are really, really underweight. And I think most people would agree, right? When you see someone that's anorexic that has like literally no body fat, everyone's like, oh, that person has problems, they have food issues. That's sad. But then when we look at someone that is morbidly obese, again, it's the same thing. Like their body is no longer working correctly. So yeah, you can tell that that person isn't healthy and they're not implementing healthy habits. And I think that with her channel, it shows that the amount of like denial that you can have, the amount of just like even though I think that she really does have good intentions when she is trying to lose weight, but it's just so fleeting that you can really get to a position where it's just no longer healthy, you know? And I think that having you and having other people making it aware, and like especially you being at that position at one point in your life and really struggling to even be able to move because of your size, for you to speak out and be like, hey, you know, health at every size, while I'm sure there's good parts, like I wasn't healthy, you know, I was literally dying. And that's that's a big reason why I wanted to make this series, is to share people's stories and just put it out there that hey, like your size can really start to have some bad effects on your health,
Absolutely.
and it can be very scary.
Absolutely. And, I think people are scared, not only because it's embarrassing, obviously, but people are really scared to step forward and talk about what it really is. Like, even in yesterday's video, when I did a reaction to her, I told everyone watching me that at one point I had trouble wiping. And that's the truth. You have trouble doing so many different things that you don't take into account until you get there. When I was 200 pounds, I used to be the person to say I could never get to 300. I got to 300, I could never get to 400. And I'll never sit here and pretend I'm better than Amberlyn. Absolutely not. I just make better decisions now in my life. And anyone can get there. That's one of the reasons I focus so much on her, because she really does give me a lot of content and things to talk about, if I'm being honest. But it's like any one of us can get there. Like, I technically, if my body didn't shut down, not taking YouTube away from it, because I wouldn't put myself on YouTube at that size, I could have been Amberlyn easily, because
Mm-hmm.
my body stopped me. I didn't stop me. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? I wish I came to that point on my own, but my body had to shut down for me to stop. I didn't do it on my own.
Yeah, and the reason I like to talk about this stuff is because it's that exact reason. Anybody can get to that point, and I don't want people to get there, because like I said, I was at my trajectory in my mind was I'm eventually going to get there, and I had just kind of accepted it, and that's nowhere that I want anyone to feel like they need to be, you know. So I think that stuff is super important. But I did want to ask, like, for the people that are watching your channel and the people that might see a video here and there, like, what's the message that you hope is being portrayed to those people?
I try to say it in every other video, and I wish I could say it in every one, but I always forget. My main message when it comes to my channel, two. I say it sometimes, it's be better today than you were yesterday and greater tomorrow than you will be today. And the second message is honestly, be better than Amberlynn and I say it sometimes, like, I literally want whoever's watching to make better decisions. Yes, I'm on the right path, but I don't need anyone to get to 300 pounds to get back on the right path. I don't need anyone to get to 600 pounds to then figure it out and get on the right path. I have a lot of people who are watching me that are 150 pounds, 170 pounds, 200 pounds, who aren't necessarily where I am. But of course, I have a lot of, morbidly obese people watching too. I just don't want them to get to this point, me or Amberlynn, because when you get to this point, it's really hard to turn it around. Like, Amber, it's gonna be hard, but even for me, it's really hard. There's days I sit around and it's like, damn, it sucks that I got myself to this place, and then I have to snap out of it. Like, okay, you got there. Oh, like, we're turning it around. Shut up and keep moving. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I have to give myself those hard conversations as well. So if anything, take away from my channel not to get to this point. And if you are at my point, okay, now turn it around. Turn it around and keep fighting.
So important. Like, obviously, yeah, you don't want people to get to that point, but at the same time, if you are there, your world hasn't ended yet until you've taken your last breath, right? You can always get back on the wagon. As cheesy as it sounds, it's like fall down 8 times, stand up 9 times. Like, you only fail when you stop trying, period, especially with weight loss, right? You have a bad meal, okay, so what? It's not the end of the world, right? Like, you can always pick yourself back up. 100%, I agree. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the channel, for being on the new series. I'm really excited about it. Again, I think that this is going to be very, very helpful for a lot of people out there. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So there you guys go. That is the interview. I just wanted to say a huge thanks again to Charlie for coming on. I really hope that you guys get something out of this interview, and I hope that you are getting something out of this series. I am more excited to do this series than I have been in a long time with anything that I'm doing on YouTube. So thank you guys again so much for the support, and I'll see you next time.